The order was given in absolute silence. It was midnight late in 1945, deep within the jagged jungle-covered mountains of northern Luzon. General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the feared Tiger of Malaya, stood motionless at the mouth of a damp, hand-dug tunnel. Inside the suffocating darkness of that cave, dozens of sweating engineers and prisoners of war were heaving the final wooden crates into place. They believed they were securing a stockpile of ammunition. They were wrong. As the heavy timber doors were sealed, Yamashita signaled his demolition team. A deafening earth-shattering explosion ripped through the mountainside. The entrance didn't just close, it vanished. Thousands of tons of rock and soil collapsed instantly, erasing the tunnel from the map. The men inside were not evacuated. They were entombed. They were buried alive to ensure that the secret map to the treasure would die in their lungs. This was not a military operation. It was the violent creation of a ghost story that would haunt the Philippines for the next 80 years. To understand why a general would bury his own men, you have to understand what was in those crates. This wasn't just money. It was the accumulated wealth of an entire continent. As the Imperial Army swept through Southeast Asia, they stripped the vaults of Singapore, emptied the temples of Burma, and confiscated the private fortunes of Malaysia. Gold bars, solid jade statues, and bags of uncut diamonds were all funneled to Manila, intended to ship to Tokyo. But by 1944, the American Navy had locked down the Pacific Ocean. The ships couldn't leave. Yamashita was trapped with billions of dollars in loot. He made a cold calculation: if the empire couldn't possess it, no one would. Legend dictates he commissioned 175 massive tunnel complexes. He filled them with the stolen soul of Asia, rigged them with 2,000-pound aerial bombs wired to hair trigger tripwires, and sealed them shut. Then, he surrendered, taking the secret locations to the gallows, leaving the world to wonder if it was all just a myth. For 25 years, the mountain kept its secret. Then came a man named Rogelio Roxas. He wasn't a soldier or a spy. He was a humble locksmith living in Baguio City. In 1970, he obtained a faded, cryptic map from a former Japanese soldier, a map that pointed to a nondescript plot of land near the local hospital. Most people called him a fool for chasing ghosts. But Roxas was possessed. For 7 grueling months, he and a small crew dug into the hard clay. They battled exhaustion, bankruptcy, and the constant terror of a cave-in. They dug until their hands bled. Then, on a cold night in January 1971, the sound of a shovel hitting metal rang out. It wasn't a rock, it was a man-made wall. They broke through the concrete seal and were hit by a blast of stale air that hadn't moved since World War II. Roxas crawled into the void. His flashlight beam cut through the dust and landed on the terrifying reality: rusty bayonets, rotting uniforms, and skeletons. But just beyond the dead sentries sat a wooden crate, and on top of that crate sat the discovery of a millennium. Roxas froze. Sitting calmly in the dust was a heavy 3-foot-tall statue of the Buddha, but this wasn't stone or bronze. It was cast in solid, 20-carat gold. He dragged the heavy artifact out of the pit, his heart pounding against his ribs. Back in the safety of his home, he discovered the true genius of the hiding spot. The head of the Buddha was removable. With a simple twist, the neck detached, revealing a hollow cavity inside. It was packed to the brim with uncut diamonds, rough emeralds, and handfuls of jewelry that glittered violently in the dim light. He had done the impossible. He had proven the legend was real. Roxas hid the statue in a closet and took photographs, believing his life of poverty was over. He was wrong. He had just painted a target on his back. In a country where whispers travel faster than light, the secret didn't last. Powerful men in the capital heard rumors of a locksmith who had found the tiger's gold. 2 months later, the dream turned into a nightmare. At 20:00 a.m., armed men in military fatigues kicked down Roxas's door. They didn't ask questions. They held his family at gunpoint and ransacked the house. They seized the golden Buddha. They seized the crates of gold bars Roxas had pulled from the tunnel. They dragged Roxas away into the night. He was thrown into a dark cell and interrogated for weeks. His captors didn't care about the law. They only wanted one thing: the map. They demanded to know where the other tunnels were. When Roxas finally emerged, he was a broken man. The government showed the press a golden Buddha, but it was a dull brass fake. A cheap replica used to discredit him. The real treasure had vanished into the shadows, likely melted down to fund a regime. Roxas spent the rest of his life fighting a legal war, screaming the truth to anyone who would listen. Years later, a court in Hawaii would posthumously award his estate a judgment of billions of dollars, legally confirming that he had found the treasure and that it was stolen from him. But the money was just paper. The gold was gone. And here is the chilling part that keeps treasure hunters awake at night. Rogelio Roxas found one tunnel, just one. Intelligence reports and local law suggest there are still over 170 tunnels left. They are hidden beneath the jungle canopy, beneath rice fields, and perhaps beneath your feet. But they are not unguarded. The rusty bombs Yamashita left behind are still active. The chemical traps are still potent. The treasure is still there, waiting in the dark, protected by the skeletons of the men who built the tomb, warning anyone who dares to enter that some secrets are meant to stay buried.